So if you've got, that's all the bottom end, and then you can go all the way up. Now that's me playing a top A,
right,
which is one of the harder notes on the neck, but it's one of the best notes for actually getting the tone. Now, if you can use the majority of those tones without going completely bum overhead, a lot of people sort of tend to go and they just let the foot go. Well, you don't. Keep your foot back and use it as a tone control. So use it as an accent to bring certain notes out and to dull certain ones off. Very similar to the hammering thing and the dampening thing we were talking about. It's very similar to that.
If you were going to play a bluesy lick, say in the A position from high to low, I mean, how would you use the wah-wah within those notes? Is there any particular way that you might emphasise certain notes with the wah, or...?
Well, that's exactly what you would do.
Right, okay.
If you were going to, again, we'll hit the top A.
Right.
Just for easy access, so to speak. If you're back on the bass end, obviously if you're up the top, you get more cut. So if you're going to go down to... you could use it basically as an effect to take that drag down. A lot of it's very percussive, and it's an instrument in its own right and should be used as such.
Yeah. Did you have any influences at all of people that use the wah-wah pedal that you listen to at all?
Not really.
Right. And how did you actually initially get into it?
Because everybody had one. But I mean, the Hendrix side of it, I mean, Hendrix was great with it, but I didn't listen to a lot. I'd listen to more of Hendrix's blues, playing straight blues, rather than the weird stuff. I got into the weird stuff later, Electric Ladyland and all that. Yeah. But basically, you use it as an appendage to your guitar.
Right, okay.
But it's an effect, but it's an effect you can control as you play.
Yeah.
It's not something that has to be predetermined as to what setting it is or anything. It is there at the end of your leg. Yeah. So you should use it as part of the whole.
If we look at the first opening section of the Don't Believe a Word solo, I noticed that you're bending, using the technique of bending down that we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
And you use a particular effect with the wah-wah there, don't you, as you release the note?
Well, it's basically you start on the very bottom of the wah tone, which is up.
Yeah.
And, well, I'll play it for you. So basically you're starting and you're picking very fast.
Yeah.
And as you come down on that note from the bend, you release the wah-wah down to treble.
Yeah.
Like.
And then back up again.
Back up again. Take the dampening onto it, then you go up.
So one of the main differences with your playing with the wah-wah pedal is, as you were quite rightly saying earlier, a lot of people tend to use the pedal really quickly, but you like to sweep through like as if you were almost turning the tone control on a guitar slowly from 0 to 10.
Well, certainly on that particular lick, but that doesn't mean to say that's the way you use it.
No.
What you do with your foot is in conjunction with what you do with your hands and your fingers. And that may sound very complicated, but once you get into that way of thinking, and thinking in tone, and thinking of hanging notes, as in... That's just one note you're hitting at the top there, but you're getting
nice
God knows how many tones out of it.
Yeah.
And it's also giving you the percussion at the end of it to drag it off. When you hit that last one, you bring it back and wow. And if it fits right, then it helps us solo.
Okay. Just moving on to coming up to the last part of the solo. It's quite an interesting part that you play here, and I think it went... it's quite interesting there because I didn't play the last
note. The last note?
Yeah, play the last note. It's quite interesting there because in musical terms, or as I see it, it's kind of like you're going from an A Dorian scale there to A natural minor to an E minor arpeggio and then bending up to the E there. I mean, at that time when I very first heard that lick on record, remembering back, it was very unusual for me because you didn't really hear a lot of rock guitarists doing anything particularly different harmonically. You know, they wouldn't necessarily go from a, swap two different modes, a Dorian to a natural minor, over one chord. It was very much, the pentatonic thing and around that. And was there any particular reason that you got into doing those type of things, which were kind of weird enough to be slightly different to what the ear would normally hear, but also not out there enough to not sound correct? If you're with me.
Yeah, I don't actually think it's a conscious thing. I don't think it ever was a conscious thing.
Right.
We've discussed this solo before.
We have, yeah.
You say, the Dorian, pentatonic.
Yeah.
That's not the way I was thinking when I recorded it. It was done in one take on the Johnny the Fox album, on a Stratocaster, in fact.
Right.
Because this guitar was broken. And we had a time schedule and I had to do it. So I really wasn't thinking about it. It sounded right.
But you are actually a classically trained musician. I'm sure a lot of people were not
on guitar.
aware of that. Not on guitar, but obviously the theory is there. So you're obviously aware of these, different aspects of theory. But
certainly, but I try to keep it out of the guitar. If I'm hitting a note, I'm not going to say, "Oh, that's a da 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 da."
Right.
I'll say that kicks. You know what? Just at that point,
right? And
that's what that song needs.
Yeah.
Whatever note it is doesn't really matter to me, and it certainly doesn't matter in rock.
No.
For sure, if you know what the note is, great help. I mean, if I was playing keyboards or cello, I'd probably know what it was.
Right.
But I completely ignore it as far as guitar is concerned.